Highness, Mr. Secretary General, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first, welcome to Stockholm. I would like to say it warmly, but I'm not sure you would agree. Chilly, mid-May, we are doing our best. In all the times, people have moved between countries, regions and continents, for longer and for shorter periods, in search of new opportunities and a better life. We see it in every part of the world. For us here in Sweden, it's actually a central part of our history. As mentioned by the Crown Princess, at the turn of the last century, about 1.3 million Swedes left Sweden in hope of a new and better future. Most of them embarked on a long journey across the Atlantic Ocean towards a new life in the United States. Only about 1/5 of them came back. So today over 4 million Americans claim Swedish heritage. To a great extent, our close relations to the United States and the many business ties have been built on this relationship. A few decades later, it was Sweden's turn to be the new home for people searching for new and better futures. Many helped Swedish industry to meet an increasing consumer demand. They came from what was then Yugoslavia, from Italy, from Greece, many came from Finland, and also many came from Turkey. A couple of years ago, I had the privilege to visit the village of Kulu in Turkey, situated 100 kilometers south of Ankara, the village that most Turks that came to Sweden originated from. It's a small village, but as many as 20 to 30,000 left Kulu to come to Sweden. Some of them went back to Kulu, and it was amazing for me to be able to stand in the town hall in Kulu and give a speech to a Turkish audience in Swedish. Not everyone understands Swedish in the world. In Kulu? Yes. The people that moved back to Turkey left a country that had given them jobs and therefore increased their possibilities when they returned home. But not all of the Turks went back. Today we are grateful that about 100,000 persons live in this country with Turkish origin, working, contributing to the Swedish society both economically and culturally. They have made Sweden richer in all meanings of that word. Another large group that came to Sweden are people from our neighboring country, Finland. Last year, I met with a large group of Finns that came to Sweden in the 1960s and 70s. We sat down and talked about their experiences. They told me that when they arrived in Sweden, they got a job within 10 hours. 10 hours. There was not much talk about previous education and training records back then. Their goal was to work hard and to be a part of the new society and to help build Sweden as we know it today. They told me how it was to live in two cultures, to be a part of Sweden and to be proud of that, to raise their children here who learned Swedish but could not master Finnish so well, and at the same time always remembering the old home country. These are two examples out of many, how important migration has been for a small country like Sweden, how it has shaped our history and our society today, knowing that the same is true for many countries around the world. These examples also illustrate how migration is contributing to development for the individual, for communities, but also for both countries of origin and countries of destination, to jobs, growth and increased living standards, to new ideas and transfer of knowledge, knowing that in most cases people that migrate are driven by their eagerness to work and build a new future for their families. As people that migrate often send money back home to their families in the country of their origin, labour migration is good also for these countries, often developing countries. Studies show that these remittances are 3 times bigger than the global development aid given to developing countries. In recent years, the debate on migration in Sweden and across Europe has often revolved around problems and challenges. We have seen racist and xenophobic parties gaining ground in several countries, but the fact is that migration offers huge opportunities. Free movement of labour within the EU is a cornerstone of European integration. Mobility between EU countries has had and continues to have positive effects on growth. It enables us to study, work and retire in other countries. Migration and mobility leads to increased openness and tolerance, to a better understanding of people from other countries and cultures, especially important for us in Europe, with our history of wars and wars. For all of these reasons, my government is convinced of the positive effects of migration. In 2008, we took the decision to open up for labour migration also from countries outside the EU. Sweden has now one of the most open systems for labour migration in the world. It is demand-driven, doesn't ask for labour with specific qualification, and does not contain quotas. This reform is central for Sweden's continued prosperity, being a small yet globalized economy, very exposed to competition from the outside world, in competition for competence on a global market, and given our demographic development. As a result of our new labour migration rules, almost 20,000 people came to Sweden from countries outside of the EU last year, to be compared with just over 6,000 people if you go back to 2006. The people who came here in 2013, mostly from Thailand, Syria, India, China and Iran, now working in the agricultural sector and as IT specialists. They are working in our restaurants, in our service sector, and as civil engineers, doctors and nurses. Migration has great potential for development, but I also want to underline how important it is that migration flows are handled in a way that positive effects are ensured for all actors. This cannot be taken for granted. We must ensure that all workers have equal working conditions, regardless of their origin. Well-functioning integration policies are crucial to how we welcome people that move here. I believe that global cooperation is needed to take full advantage of the strong force that migration can be for development. The global dialogue that this global forum has created is therefore very important. I wish you very interesting discussions over the coming days, and I thank you very much for your attention.